Hello, let's talk brushes today. So to start off, let's talk about powder brushes. So I have a selection here, and I'm just gonna show you kind of what, they're just kind of big, fluffy brushes that you would use to set your face with powder. My personal favorites are these three. The Real Techniques powder brush is my favorite. I also really like this one, which was from Vanity Planet. It's so soft. I love it a lot. And then this e.l.f. Kabuki face brush is also really nice. I just like my brush to have a little bit more of a handle, but this one is very good for powder as well. So that's a great thing. You just kind of you don't want it really dense, because then you're gonna get way too much powder on your face. You just want a fluffy, loose brush that you can use to put powder all over your face. And some of the smaller ones I also use for blush, because I like a big blush. And I have big cheeks, so if I use a smaller brush, it can take longer. Speaking of blush, let's move into blush brushes. It appears that I only have one that's specified for blush. Clean. Well, it's not clean. I've only used it once though, so I used it today. But this is your basic blush brush. This is basically what it looks like. However, I also use smaller powder brushes, and sometimes I also use stippling brushes, which is what this looks like. This one's from Real Techniques. And stippling brushes can be used for blush, highlight, foundation, really a lot of stuff. It's just a different style of brush, and they tend to work better with cream products supposedly, but I use them with powders just fine. So it all depends on how you use it. Now, this is a brush called a contour brush, and it's set at an angle so that you can do this. I don't generally contour, so I use this for blush as well. Real Techniques has this brush called a Expert Face Brush, which is kind of a buffing brush, which I have one that looks like this from Royal and Langnickel, which is just called the buffing brush. I think it must be dirty because I don't see it here. Anyway, and it's kind of almost bulbous, almost like a doorknob on the end. And you can use this for blush or for foundation or whatever. It's pretty tightly packed, so you don't want to use it with a pigmented blush. Go and use it for something that's not pigmented, because it's going to put a lot of color on your cheeks. Flat-topped brushes like this are great for foundation. I also use this for blush. Are you noticing a theme? I use a lot of brushes for a lot of things. Mostly blush. Basically, if it's clean and I've got it handy, I'll use it for blush. And that's really mostly what I use for the face, but there are also these that are fan brushes. Sorry about that. And fan brushes are often used for wiping excess powder off the face, which I don't bake very often, so it's bake. It's a technique that people on YouTube It was very popular for a while. I don't know how popular it is now, where they would put lots and lots of powder on an area where they wanted it to sit forever. They wanted their makeup to stay forever, and they would leave the powder on for 10 minutes to half an hour, and then they would wipe off whatever was left. And they would often use a fan brush, and fan brushes are also often used for highlight. I don't use fan brushes very often, but when I do, it's generally for highlight. I think that about covers my face brushes. And we'll move into eyeshadow brushes. Now, there's two main eyeshadow brushes that I recommend anyone have. And that's one shaped like this. And this is called the e.l.f. blending brush. And it's similar to the shape's this one's a little bit more circular. This one's kind of has two sides to it, whereas this one's circular. This is one from Royal and Langnickel called the Crease Smudge Brush, because it has a smudger on one end, but this is the crease side. And I suggest you have one like this. I'd go with the e.l.f. if you're on a budget, though the Royal and Langnickel one's not particularly expensive, because it's great for the crease, and you can also use it to use your brow bone highlight and blend out your crease even further. So I recommend having one of those. And the other one that I highly recommend that you have is a C-shaped brush. Now this one is from Wet n Wild, and I think it's called the large eyeshadow brush. And this one is from e.l.f. and it's just called the C brush. Eyeshadow C brush. And the e.l.f. one is more densely packed than the Wet n Wild one. This one, the e.l.f. I think was $3, whereas the Wet n Wild one was $1. So it's up to you which one you like better. I use them usually if I want less color, I go with the Wet n Wild, but if I really want to pack on a punch, I use the e.l.f. So you really should use a C shader brush. Other examples of a C shader brush are, I just had it in my hand. Where did you go? My brush, brushy brush. Okay, here's one from Bean Gashi. I don't know, it's a French name. And then it's like that. Here's one from Royal and Langnickel. It came in the same pack as the crease brush. And here's one from Elizabeth Mott. And sometimes they're just called shadow brushes, sometimes they're called shader brushes, but you'll notice that they all kind of have a C shape to them, which is why they're called C brushes. And I highly recommend that you have one of those. And honestly, if you just have those two and a blush brush, you're good to go. You don't need anything else except your mascara and your actual makeup. But should you want more brushes, there are more that you can use. Such as one of my favorites is the smudger brush. I have one more, but I guess it must be dirty. Anyway, a smudger brush looks kind of like this. This one's from e.l.f. I got it for $1. I need to glue it back together, but I mean the brush is fine, and the one end of the Royal and Langnickel. And these are kind of densely packed, generally short bristles, and you use them on your lower lash line or your upper lash line, generally to smudge a liner or to put a eyeshadow in kind of a hazy way. I was gonna say something else about that. Oh, I think I have one from, yeah, and this one's from Wet n Wild. It was also $1. But this wasn't called a smudger brush. It was called a smoky liner brush, but it's a smudger brush. Another brush that is really nice to have, particularly if you want to do small little details, is a detail brush. And this one is from Coastal Scents, which is a company that you can buy online, and it has a number BRCNO1. So this is a small little, for tiny little, if you want to do tiny little details. And this is a similar one, not quite as fluffy. It's much more flat and stiff, from Vanity Planet, which I really like my Vanity Planet brushes. And then, you know, there's general, oh, I guess there's also pencil brushes, which this is a very fat one from e.l.f. called the Contour Brush. But generally, pencil brushes get their name because, as you would expect, they're shaped like a pencil. I have a better one that's dirty that I probably should have brought out to show you, but it's too late now. And, you know, they can be used to smudge out your lash line as well. They can be used in your crease. I don't generally use pencil brushes very often. I don't find a use for them. I mean, they have uses, but I prefer a smudger brush. Here's another example of a different crease brush. This one is much more shaped like a pencil, but it's very fluffy and it works. This is the crease brush from Coastal Scents. I prefer fluffier ones like this. This one will give you a much more pinpoint effect. So it's really, the different brushes will give different effects, but you can usually achieve what you want with a minimal of things. And then finally, a liner brush. This one is from e.l.f. and I really like it because it has just a little angle there, and it, see if I hold it up straight, has this little angle and it's a little stiff. And I really like it, and because it cleans well, because the bristles are kind of plasticky actually, which I kind of like. But this is great for gel eyeliner or liquid eyeliner, which I don't recommend if you're a beginner. Just stick with that pencil. Stick with that pencil or gel. Gel eyeliner is pretty easy to clean up. But that sums up. Like, honestly, I have variations on different brushes. Mostly I have a lot of crease brushes and different I don't know what the word I'm going for here. Different amounts, different variations on C shadow brushes where, you know, one's denser than the other, one's longer than the other. Like this one from Sonia Kashuk is considered a C shadow brush, but it's, you know, it's longer. It's not that very blunt C. So, you know, it's just, that's a very basic idea for brushes, and it's fun, and it's always a good idea to, I don't know, I'm just starting to ramble at this point, so. Anyway, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment or a question or anything in the comment section, or contact me via Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and I'll see you next time.